got your audio one? Is that say?
Got
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, just say click on got it. Click on it. Okay, it says got it over here in the middle. Okay.
All right. That's kind of been like my day.
Well, happy birthday.
It's your birthday?
Yeah, it's his birthday today.
Happy
Let's call this
birthday.
meeting to order. It's a city council special meeting, Monday, August 9, 2021, 5:10 p.m. City Hall, vis-a-vis Zoom. Any citizen comments or reports, Francisca?
Yes, sir. We have
Wait a minute, I can't hear you.
we have some in the waiting room. We're going to go ahead and let them speak first. And if they have sent in a comment and they speak, then I won't read their comments. So first person. Hello,
Can't hear you.
you've entered the city council meeting. Do you have any citizen comments?
You're muted.
I'm not muted, Mayor.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. The person that I added is not responding.
It's something, Fran.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
now we can hear you.
I was saying that there's some citizens in the waiting room for the Zoom phone call in, so I'm going to let them speak first.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, you've entered the city council meeting. Do you have any citizen comments?
Yes, Francisca, are y'all broadcasting?
We are,
On YouTube, right?
correct.
Okay, well, it's not coming up, at least not for me. Just FYI.
Maybe refresh because there is a delay.
I did. I've hit refresh every about 5 minutes, just like, I mean, actually about every 2 minutes. And I just hit it again.
And I'll check. I'll have Peggy check.
Yeah, have Peggy check if you don't mind. Kathy, do you have any citizen comments? And they will be
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Okay, yes. My name is Kathy Fulton, and right now I'm at 619 East Avenue B. And earlier I submitted a petition, a hard copy petition that was done, that we just did yesterday, put together just really fast. And just on that hard copy petition, it's 85 signatures. We're going to continue to do this. And continue to collect more signatures. I just ran out of time. And also there's about 100 other signatures from resident. These are all residents that live and vote here. And there's another 100 that were submitted from Mallory. And we just, if y'all see the statement on the petition, I just want to say that we support the council's effort and to focus on the community first. And we support the third and final reading of all agenda items and the council's decision to move forward by approving all agenda items. And we would really appreciate, we feel things are just needing to get much more. Actually, we know they are, and there are the studies out there, and especially that freeze and nickel study done last year. None of these items have continued to be discounted. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Fran, I checked. Peggy says we're good on YouTube.
Okay, great.
And as a side note, I scanned and sent the documents that Kathy's referring to, although albeit late, but as soon as she brought them in, I scanned them, and you guys have the full set to your city emails.
Thank you.
Any more comments?
Yes, sir. Hello, you've entered the city council meeting. Do you have any citizen comments?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, somebody's talking over me, but
If-
it's Richard Tinnen, 219 West Oaks, Port Aransas. I'm a full-time resident. I've lived here for 47 years. Hello?
Yes, sir. Do you have the YouTube on in the background?
Yes, she's just
Could you
leaving the
mute that?
room. Yes, we just turned that off.
Okay, great.
Okay, Richard Tinnen, 219 West Oaks, full-time resident. I'm speaking tonight to encourage the council to pass favorably the third and final reading of the three ordinances that are on the agenda tonight. I understand we're a tourist community. I understand that we need business here, but my greatest, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my concern is we're being swamped and overrun by short-term rentals, by development on this island that is changing the entire character of the island. I've been here 47 years. I paid my dues helping to develop the quality of life here. I was on the original Charter Commission. I was on one of the first councils after the Charter Commission. I spent 6 years on the school board. I was on the board when the government in their infinite wisdom doubled our tax rate. I think we still send 78 cents off the island of every penny we collect on school taxes here. We have a great concern about long-term housing for people who live here and support the businesses in this community. Our families are leaving. If we don't have enough kids in the school anymore, the school will cease to exist, and the quality of life in this town will disappear. So I'm very concerned about the quality of life of the full-time residents here. And again, I really encourage and support the council in their efforts to pass the third and final reading of these three ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tinnen. Hello, you've entered the city council meeting. Do you have any citizen comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Hello, you've entered the city council meeting. Do you have any citizen comments?
Yes.
Okay, can you state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, Victoria Spencer Smith, also known as Victoria Stewig, business address 1820 South 11th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Other address 1901 South Station number 4. Other address 907 South 11th.
Victoria, can you mute the YouTube video in the background?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It should
thank
be.
you. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yes, I just want to speak regarding use and structures, and condemnation should never create a non-conforming use, but only a non-conforming structure. My property, I live here full-time. I pay taxes over $50,000 total here, lived here full-time for years. Son graduated from school here. My livelihood is here. I agree, there's a lot of density in this town. I also will not have my rights stomped over by city council without legal representation of my own and of our community. There needs to be time for due diligence. There needs to be time for us to take a second and look at this. The other thing that I have to bring up is, one is when regulation compels a landowner to suffer physical invasion of his property. Second is when a regulation eliminates all reasonable, economically viable uses of property. To deprive an owner of all economically beneficial use of land is tantamount to depriving him of the land itself, and thus the regulation is virtually the same as physical taking. Therefore, the regulating government must compensate the landowner for the full value of their property. With this said, what I am saying is, I own a home and I rent my downstairs. I live here full time, but I depend on my help and rent of short term to be able to pay my bills. And I do the same thing at my RV park in order to pay my bills, which no one knows until they're an owner. This all needs to be taken into consideration. I live here just like everybody else does. And this is my livelihood, and it will not be taken away from me lightly. We will pursue as needed, and I urge the council to proceed with caution, due diligence, and to consult with their legal counsel because it's going to hit hard. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Question on that. I have a question.
She hung up.
If she calls back, ask what she was talking about. Is she talking about ordinance A, B, C, D? Which one?
Okay. We have,
I'm not sure, Mayor. Yeah.
hello, you've entered the city council meeting. Do you have citizen comments? Hello.
Hello.
Hi, do you have citizen comments?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, can you state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Alan Stevenson, and I live at 746 East Cotter. I am a full-time resident here, a small business owner here in town, and I have long-term and short-term rentals. My concern is the speed with which all of this is taking place without any, in my estimation, due diligence to substantiate the changes that have been in place with the city for so long. This is all trying to be changed in a matter of 23 days for all 3 readings, and I do not think that that's adequate time to get a good, intelligent idea of what really needs to be changed. So I am hoping that this can be extended and do what's best for the city, do what's best for our full-time occupants, and do what's best for our business owners here in town. So I am absolutely against the 3 ordinances passing as they've been put up for the 3rd reading. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Yes, sir.
Full-time occupants and do what's best for our business owners here in town. So
Hello, you
I am absolutely against.
Hello?
Hello, sorry. If you can mute your YouTube and if you state
It
your
is.
address and you'll have 3 minutes.
My address is 1820 South 11th Street, 1901 South Station Number 4, and 907 South 11th.
And your name?
Victoria Spencer Smith, Victoria Stewig. Either
We've
one.
already had Victoria.
Just call.
But there was a question for me to call back.
Oh, they were wanting to know what agenda item you're referring to, or is it all 3?
The agenda item that I'm referring to is the one that deals with the accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, ADUs.
Okay, so that's item B.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And it affects my lot on 11th Street as well as my homestead.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Hello, you've entered the city council meeting. Do you have any citizen comments?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes,
can
I
you
do.
State your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Lisa Turcott. I live at 200 North 12th Street, and I own a home at 305 Avenue J in Port Aransas. And I would like to make 3 comments for the record. The first one is kudos to Mayor Bouillon for speaking his truth to the South Jetty about the barrage of short-term rentals occurring in just about every nook and cranny on this small, very limited island. The quality of life for all full-time citizens is being threatened, or killed entirely. Hence the reason so many longtime residents have vacated the premises. Number two, I'd like to say that I see that there's a new organization on the block called the Taxpayers Alliance in favor of all the new development. The Jetty article states that if more info is needed, contact Michelle Lorette or Audrey Hall. I wonder why Ms. Lorette didn't bring up any of her concerns at the first and second readings of the SCR ordinance changes. Seems to me that would have been a prime, ideal time to say something, don't you think? And how convenient to be a realtor in Port Aransas and your husband's a builder and he sits as a chair on the Port Aransas Planning and Zoning Committee. You know, there's several developments that have been built with 20 little boxes and 20 little plunge pools. They're going up all over the island. They're very uncreative, they're unappealing, and they're unacceptable to everybody. Where was this organization when the first and second readings of these ordinances came up? Not in the audience, only that one. My number three is I'd like to state for the record, Port Aransas needs a moratorium on short-term rentals until we can get our ducks lined up in a row and old Port Aransas can be saved at least a little bit. My name is Lisa Turcott, and those are my comments. Thank you to the council and to the mayor. Hello?
Thank you, Ms. Turcott.
Thank you.
Bye. Port Aransas needs a moratorium on short-term rentals until.
Hello, can you mute your YouTube video?
I'm just getting tuned into live stream now.
My name is Lisa Turcott, and those are my comments.
Okay, could you mute it? Because we can hear it in the.
Thank you to the council and to the mayor.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. And you have a citizen comment?
Bye.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Do you have a citizen comment?
Well, I submitted one, and I sent a letter, both.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and read your citizen comment, just state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Well, can you give me a minute?
Sure, no problem.
Because I wasn't thinking I would be doing this live. Hang on.
What's going on, Fran?
He's getting his citizen comment. I believe he typed it up and he's retrieving it right now. We can go to the next person and we'll just mute him and ask him to unmute when we're done.
Joel.
Sorry.
He has something to say.
All right, mute that dog, please.
It looks like he has left the meeting. So that's all the citizen comments that have called in. I do have some to read. So if y'all are ready, bear with me. And I think Rick has some as well.
Yeah, Fred, I had notified him that I sent him the call-in information, but did tell him that I would, which I have done, email their comments in their entirety to council. So I invited him to read them. Otherwise, I did tell him that council received them.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and start. This first one is going to be Brenda Martin. She said she is against the ordinance discussed tonight. She lives at 5460 Salazar Road, Wamego, Kansas. She states, Dear City Council members, on section 25-176.7 of ordinance number 2010-5, 1, 3, 18, and 10, I would like to see the changes removed. We choose to invest in the Port Aransas community because we are told it has an outstanding business-friendly environment. This amendment is anything but business-friendly. With the stroke of your pen, you'll be causing my investment to have a negative equity immediately, which will in turn trickle down, causing either a local recession of significantly increase the property tax or both. All this just to remain at the same current tax level. In this country, the government has the power that the people give them. And last time I checked, property rights are still sacred in Texas. If this amendment passes as proposed, the tax base in the form of hotel tax will decrease. The property taxes will increase because demand will decrease. That's lower prices. We currently only have our main house in short-term status and our ADU in long-term status. This was a business decision for the long-term viability of our business. Grandfathering will not help long-term because the resale value will plummet. Because I implore you to see reason and remove your restrictions on property owner rights, look around at all the small towns that are dying. You can see that the economic base of the community is its livelihood. Please don't destroy what you have. The next comment is going to be from Brianne Field. Her address is 2525 11th Street, number 17. Ms. Field states, we bought the property a couple years ago before COVID. I am shocked at how much the change since, I see the problem on this island with the number of people and the strain that it puts on the infrastructure. I empathize with people that live permanently on the island and I have some ideas that might help. My general opinion is that it needs to be more expensive to vacation rent on the island, and the city needs to make more money from the people on the island during peak times. All of this needs to happen without pushing out or pricing out permanent residents. So the easy option for raising property taxes is probably not the best option. Below are some of my ideas. 1, charge non-permanent residents more than $15 for the annual beach permit. Charge RVs and people camping on the beach a nightly rate or tax since they use the city roads, trash, etc. while they are here. Raise the STR fee for owners that choose to rent their property and perhaps index it to either square footage, the number of bedrooms, or the number of people the property sleeps. This might already be in place, but I'm not sure. Force property owners to use a property management company to rent their properties. Impose a minimum nightly rate that the property management companies have to enforce based on the size of the property and or the number of people that the property sleeps. If the entire city were to raise their STRs, I think it would at least help to reduce the number of people on the island during peak time. It would certainly help to keep the less desirable people from renting properties on the island. The bottom line is that it is a very cheap and accessible vacation. Now that the wonderful beach town of Port A has been discovered, it needs to become a more expensive and exclusive vacation spot. I choose Vince for what it's worth.
Where's that noise coming from?
I'm not sure. Let's see.
You should mute somebody.
Here we go. Let me try that. Is that better? All right, the next comment is going to be from Shannon Solomine for Tehran Terrace, Clarksville, Tennessee. She said she is for the passage of the ordinances and states, I fully support the proposed changes involving density and rentals. Port Aransas does not have the ability to alleviate issues, including traffic, wastewater, and runoff due to its already overdeveloped state. The changes are absolutely necessary to maintain growth and balance. The next one is going to be from Carolyn M. McCabe. She is for proposed changes. She states she is at 1716 South Station Street. The trash problems, the noise problem, the lack of parking issues, and clogging up the street is making Station Street dangerous and miserable. Please get control of this before every local is run off. The short term next to me averages 20 people, 8 to 10 vehicles. The sidewalk is impassable due to folks parking on it, and with all these people, one trash tote. I have been picking up trash for 2 hours waiting on the rental company. We need help. The next one is going to be from Joseph Billistre. He is against the proposed changes. He is at 1720 Fisherman's Cove. Mr. Billistre says, I respectfully ask the Council of Port Aransas to temporarily table proposed changes to the zoning and property rental ordinances. This should be done until such times as studies assessing the short and long-term effects of these ordinances changes regarding the impact on local businesses, the employees and property owners, both residents and non-residents. With the information gleaned from these studies, the impact of the proposed changes will be made much clearer. The residents of Port Aransas will then have a better understanding of the ramifications that the future changes really affecting the main economic sector of the island will likely bring about. The risk of possible greatly decreased tax income for school funding and community services is reason enough to better inform the voting public and town government of the unforeseen consequences of such actions. I respectfully submit that a partnership approach with residents, business owners, city government, and rental owners for the goal of our relationship. Everyone interested in this subject also has a vested interest in ensuring Port A is a safe, clean, enjoyable town to live in as well as visit. By everyone working together toward this common goal, I believe much more can be accomplished and needless friction avoided. Everyone who cares about this wants the best version of Port Aransas it can possibly be. Thank you. Gayla Stevenson says she is very against all ordinances today. Ms. Stevenson lives at 746 East Cotter. Karen Steves, 1326 Ross, says, I do not agree with what the council is trying to do. Susan Powell states she's undecided. She said she lives at 512 12th Street. Mayor, council, and staff, I commend and thank you for your efforts thus far to revise ordinances to better reflect the concerns of residents. Thank you. And John Christensen, 531 Lydia Ann Channel, states, I believe the current proposals are being rushed through the proposal process without careful consideration and input from a large segment of our city population. While I do agree that changes might need to be made, I cannot agree with our current mayor's comments on local TV that we need to curtail short-term rentals to reduce the number of visitors to our city. I propose that we table the final reading for these ordinances until we can adequately discuss these issues and evaluate the probable impact to all of the citizens and property owners. There are current ordinances in effect which can address many of the concerns expressed if enforced more diligently. I have been aware of the green space and drainage requirements of the community since I came here in '91, and I've always used these guidelines when constructing new homes. However, I see some projects that do not seem to follow the same guidelines. This is a simple policing problem and should not require a special mandate that would have an adverse effect on all of us. I'm asking that our city council and others involved take a step back and let us discuss the matters in greater detail. Wayne Williams is, he's actually in the meeting. Do you want to hear his comment?
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Williams. Same guidelines. Your citizen comment problem and should not require a special mandate that would have an adverse effect on all of us. I'm asking that our city council and others involved take a step back and let us discuss the matters in greater detail. Okay, let me see if he is able to.
That was much too fast.
He didn't present it. He had me going in the background in the YouTube video. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read his comment. It's Mr. Williams. He says he is against. He says, good afternoon. My name is Wayne Williams and I reside at 365 Mustang Boulevard. I am here today to ask the city council to take a breath in a position to calmly come up with solutions to the short-term rentals issue. I request that the city works with both sides of the issue to form a committee to bring to the council at a later date possible solutions to the issue. There are numerous rules, policies, and procedures for short-term rentals. We just need to look them over, enforce these policies, and not jump into any new changes that the city might regret at a later time. There are solutions to the issue. We are not the only city that deals with tourists and the growing pains that come with it. Please give some consideration to forming this committee and allowing them some time to bring your answers. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir. So I got a couple more to go. Betsy Churagai. She is at 2 Street. And she states short-term rentals, as a result of reading a recent magazine article with an almost 100% of their same issues as Port Aransas. I had the distinct pleasure of calling the Crested Butte Colorado Director of Development in their neighborhood, Mount Crested Butte. They are in the same dilemma of how to cope with short-term rentals and how to retain worker housing. Here's a summary of what Mr. Butthole did. Also offer great suggestions. However, they are mainly a winter destination and their accommodations are almost all of tourists, not residents. First off, CB declared a 1-year moratorium on additional short-term rentals. Give me just a moment. She has a very long comment, so I was going to put the timer on for this one. Additional short-term rentals, they have already limited STRs to 25% of the housing available, with residents, whether long-term rentals or owners, getting the other 75%. They permit Airbnb rentals to a certain extent, limited amounts with logical rules regarding parking, etc. They're also looking for a company, not an individual, with actual knowledge of how to take an accurate census of short-term rentals and the metrics their city council will need to decide what to do. They do not at this time have a company in mind. They decided the one company mentioned in the article did not meet their qualifications. I had hoped to get the company's name so you can investigate to see if they are a good fit for PA, rather than just appoint a smooth talking person with a pen and clipboard to get a handle on our STR situation. I hope to include in this message a copy of their short-term rental rule. Please consider your minimal application, add those clauses that will help you to accurately and fairly assess the situation. They have also instituted a pillow tax, as if somebody rents a mansion and only puts 2 people in it, they still have to pay the $10 pillow being sent to the city. Of major note, they have reduced their hot tax by about 50%, and Colorado law permits them to use the extra tax, formerly part of the hot tax, as an excise tax. This would free up about 50% of our hot tax to be used to benefit all of Port A, not just STR folks. I Googled Texas excise tax, and it is A-OK for TX to do this. Benefits, for example, because of the massive influx of tourists, could include repave, upgrade, fix roads, instead of burdening the residents taxpayer with a $10 million, maybe more, proposed amount for road construction, reconstruction, et cetera, as well as add to the general fund for whatever purposes council sees a need. Look around, please. We do not need to continue to fund the Chamber of Commerce with excessive money. Everybody loves PA, and they are coming here whether we like it or not. We do not need to encourage more people. They will be here in increasing numbers. 2, please consider increasing the homestead residents. We have money coming in from other sources, and with diminishing residential homesteads, it's just a drop in the bucket for you to do this. Do you want to retain what locals remain? Perhaps ask our county constable and chief of police to weigh in on this suggestion. You have seen or heard of the huge uptick this summer with golf cart accidents. Please consider requiring all golf carts, whether rented or privately owned, to install a turn signal cancellation device on not only new entries into the market, but existing golf carts that are rented out. Many accidents have been made worse, and public opinion of rental golf carts have deteriorated markedly in the past 2 years because a turn signal does not go off. After a turn is made and disrupts traffic flow, units cost under $100 each, and if purchased in bulk, they may not be a lot less. This would be incumbent to rental companies and perhaps the council's discretion to privately own carts. Okay, I have a couple more. This is from Beth Owens. Council, you all serve citizens in our town. The most important job as a city council representative is to listen and serve your citizens. How can a newly elected council know 1 month that you are listening to all your citizens you represent? There is a reason why our founding fathers in Port A made it 3 reading over 90 days to make an ordinance. It is good government. Many people who work and own on the island are having daily challenges of staffing on top of being in the middle of the pandemic. Many citizens are trying to survive every day to get through this record season. This is very sneaky as a council. You as a council snuck in a 3 reading ordinance July 15th, July 26th, and August 9th, not a 90-day waiting period for citizens to be able to respond. Yes, this town is growing and every other town in Texas is too. We have over 4,000 full-time residents that live in Port Aransas. Only about 800 people came out to vote in May that appointed you to your chair. The small percentage that voted you in doesn't represent all 4,000 residents. I urge you to table this now. You are there to help govern our town. Okay, this next one is going to be from Mr. Robert Bentley. He says, I live at 408 Mustang. I'm a lifelong visitor of Port Aransas. I've watched the city transform over the last 50 years. Some things I don't, most things have been positive. My statement to council is as follows. 50 years ago, the island was small and consisted of mostly cottages and the beachfront condominiums. The beachfront consisted of docks, a couple of restaurants, Matthews, etc. There was the Island Food Store, Custard's Last Stand, Pat McGee's, and several other old school places that I can't remember. What I do remember is the fact that none of the places I've mentioned would have been suitable if it weren't for the visitors. These tourists came and spent their money, ate at restaurants, shopped at the grocery store, bought their Pat McGee's t-shirt so they could travel home and proudly display their proof they have been to Port A. The point of mentioning these things is that without the city leaders' vision, foresight to capitalize on the tourism business, PA could have easily faded away during the downtimes. As we all know, we are in an unprecedented economic growth period. Port Aransas is in the middle of the growth, and I believe everyone realizes we need a plan to move forward. That being said, we must remember that good times in the overabundance of tourists and their money will eventually slow down. We cannot be short-sighted in our view of the growth of our town. As a developer, I have seen peaks and valleys over the years. Economies change. The overcrowded restaurants, stores, and streets could be empty. Instead of stopping development in the rental business that sustains our island, we should enforce our present laws and ordinances, not raise hot rates and STR license fees and beach permit fees to a level that allows the city to earn a substantial revenue stream. This will accomplish several beneficial items. A consistent substantial revenue stream, whether STRs are rented or not, funds for rental and code enforcement, funds for additional police, fire, funds for infrastructure improvements and maintenance, allow for better and more consistent trash services for inner city as well as the beach, funds for additional beach road maintenance, and many more city investments. In conclusion, will continue to happen. We as citizens need to be steward of this. We need to grow in a well thought out and sustainable way. Stopping STRs and future plan growth will only remove the limit of the city's ability and limit the city's ability to increase revenue and to maintain the great place we all enjoy. All right, next one is going to be from Richard K, 510 Paradise Point. I'm a local business owner and own multiple residential investment properties here in PA full-time, have a child in PA ISD, actively support local fundraising efforts on a consistent basis, volunteer every chance. I love this community as much as anyone and recognize the need for progressive change. I signed the Port Aransas Taxpayer Alliance petition because I feel the current city council has rushed these decisions without allowing the proper amount of time to study the nature of the problem and carefully consider a variety of possible solutions. I also believe code enforcement and parking and maximum STR occupancy enforcement should be made a priority without harsh penalties to those that violate the rules. Growth is inevitable and cannot be stopped. Therefore, I would respectfully ask the local government to be forward-thinking and carefully evaluate how best to accommodate growth. There are many smart local taxpaying businessmen and women that also want the best for our community that, if asked, could potentially offer suggestions on how our community might move forward in a considerate, responsible manner without devastating local businesses and eliminating much needed jobs. Thank you for your consideration. And I have one more, it's pretty long. So I'm gonna set my timer. And this, my name is Audrey Hall of 642 Sankey Drive. Along with my husband, Kevin Hall, I am the owner of Sankey Realty Vacation Rentals and Sales. I understand that a workshop regarding short-term rentals will follow this meeting, and I want to share our personal story and opinion regarding changes. The idea that this city is considering limiting short-term rental registration gives me grave concern. The value of my home could be greatly affected by this decision, and it's not something that I take lightly. I also worry for my clients and owners who have purchased homes with the intention of renting short-term and the ability of future buyers to be able to do the same with these properties. 11 years ago, when we decided to build a home here, we did a lot of thinking about where we would make the most sense. We specifically purchased in a TR zone because one day if we decided to sell, whoever purchased it would be able to STR in which would make it very valuable. It was not easy being a new college graduate and owning a home in Port A. It took a lot of sacrificing on Kevin and my part to own and maintain a home here on the island at the age of 26. We could have been like so many of our friends and purchased an affordable home in Corpus 11 years ago, but we saw a vision and the benefit of figuring it out here. There were no decent paying jobs here in Port A at the time, so I drove to Corpus every day and worked as a teacher for CCISD. We barely scraped by, and there were times we did not know how we were going to pay our property taxes. Kevin worked multiple jobs as well, and even the graveyard shift at a local hotel and condo complex. But when faced with the idea of throwing in the towel, we saw the bigger picture and kept grinding. We figured out that this is what we wanted to stay here for. We had to start a business that there was a need for here on the island. The realty was the niche for the businesses revolved around tourism. We had no idea that what we were doing, but in 2012, we started Sankey Realty with nothing. We took out a small home equity loan and plunged headfirst into the short-term rental world. Over 9 years, we have built our inventory and reputation by word of mouth. We are very involved in our business on a day-to-day basis. Anyone who has interacted with us knows we answer our phones and will deal with any problems head on. You can reach us if there is an issue and we want to do what is right. Mr. Beyond's comment to the media regarding STRs is a slap in the face. He is basically saying my business that I worked so hard to create should just go away and isn't important. Most of our guests are extremely respectful of our island, the properties, the neighbors, and are happy to be here enjoying a vacation with our family. This is the only vacation a lot of people even get to take their children on. Port A is the beach of Texas, and it is not right for certain locals to want to keep it to themselves. I have listened to their complaints, and really it seems to boil down to them being unhappy with progress and change. I, for one, like progress and am happy to see new restaurants, shops, and fun things to do being added to our community. I grew up in a small town in Texas with one blinking light. It still only has 2 restaurants, and most people have to travel to neighboring towns to work, shop, or enjoy some fun. Our business employs 10 individuals, 6 who are locals. And I emailed these to everyone earlier, so if you wanted to continue reading or finish reading those comments, I think I have 1 or 2 more that was printed out earlier. We have one from Steve DeWitt. Mr. DeWitt states, my name is Steve DeWitt. I live at 487 Mustang Boulevard here in Port Aransas. I have been a resident of Port Aransas since 2012. My wife and I own Life in Paradise Vacation Rentals and Golf Carts, also here in Port Aransas. Our business is a family business that my mother and stepfather, Martha and David Dorr, purchased in the early 90s. My wife and I purchased the business in 2015. The 3rd generation is currently working in the business, and someday they will take over the company. Currently, we manage over 300 properties along with renting 80 golf carts. We are very blessed to have employees that buy into our goal of being good citizens along with providing great customer service to our owners and guests. We currently employ 25 full-time employees and over 50 seasonal employees. Our business provides over $1.8 million in wages to these employees. A number of these employees call Port A home and rely on the income to live here. Any talk of limiting STRs or possible STR moratoriums is a great concern for our company, our employees, and our property owners, and will eventually affect the tourists that come to Port Aransas for vacation. The public comments for city officials regarding STRs are what caught my attention and prompted me to get involved to protect the property owner's investment, my employees' livelihood, and also my personal investment in my business. Combine these public comments along with the fast pace at which the council is moving to make ordinance changes for developments makes me believe STRs could be the next target. Personally, I have I do have mixed emotions regarding the proposed changes for developments and have voiced my opinion on several occasions because poorly planned complexes are not easy to manage for property management companies like ours. When it comes to the proposed ordinance regarding ADUs, I do not see how the new proposal will do much help with the quality of life issues that have been described by local citizens. The council should, at a minimum, take a deep breath and delay decisions until comprehensive studies have been conducted to make sure the proposed changes are, in fact, what is best for all property owners and citizens of Port Aransas. When it comes to any additional talk on ordinances regarding STRs, we would love the opportunity to work with the city council with ideas we think would assist in meeting the desired results for all involved. This one is from Angela Gents. She says, thank you for restoring our town so residents can enjoy it once again. Don Jensen, 700 Island Retreat, number 57, save it, don't pave it. And one more from the Texas Payers Alliance. Since we will not be able to attend this meeting in person, Port Aransas Taxpayers Alliance is pleased to submit the following comments and signatures to be included in the public meeting minutes and read during public comments. Port Aransas Taxpayer Alliance is a new growing group of concerned business owners, property owners, and residents that form to meet and discuss the recent council actions that have an effect on all of us and to help develop workable solutions to problems that have been raised regarding rental property and lot development. Our concerns deal with the current changes. The city council is quickly pushing through the effects that affect the rental property, ADUs, lot sizes, et cetera, found in chapters 21, 25, and city zoning or in the city zoning ordinance. We are concerned that the changes have not been thoroughly vetted, studied, or shared with taxpayers who will directly be affected by the changes. In addition, while the action is not required legally, we feel that the proper and neighborly thing to do is to notify in writing all property owners that may be affected with adequate time to respond and comment. During this period, the community will have an opportunity to evaluate possible changes and the ramifications to their property. We all have the same love for our city and want to work together to identify problems and develop reasonable solutions. Many of us are concerned that the current actions will result in legal challenges against the city, as well as concerns with the long-term financial ramifications of hasty and precarious actions. As a group, we do not approve the actions of the city council and mayor regarding the changes currently proposed on the agenda as the third and final reading tonight. This group strongly believes that some of the issues being brought up could be solved if current ordinances were properly enforced without the resulting drama of legal risk. Good and sound government practices should provide a written attorney's opinion regarding legal ramifications of these actions, as well as an analysis of financial impact on the current and future city's budget. The community pulled together after Harvey, and we as taxpayers and residents want to be part of the solution that the council has identified as issues and work together to make our city even stronger. And they did provide that petition. There's 343 signatures and comments on that petition. And that is it.
Thank you, Fran.
You're welcome. I'm going to get a water.
Somebody needs to unmute the mayor.
Not anymore.
All right, got it.
Okay. Any more citizen comments or reports?
No, sir.
None whatsoever. That was it, huh?
That was it.
Okay. Item 3. Items for consideration. Discuss, take action, or pass on any of the following. 3A is an ordinance, third and final reading, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 21, subdivisions by correcting grammatical errors, amending Article 3, plat contents and approval procedure, Section 21-58, final plat review process, and Section 21-59, minor plat review process, amending Article 9, requirements for improvements and reservations and design, Division 2, improvements, section 21 through 127, lot dimension and building dimensions, section 21 through 128, lot building lines, division 10, NUD, the Neighborhood Unit Development Center, section 21 through 242, definitions, section 21 through 243, minimum requirements, deleting division 11, CUD, cottage unit development, amending division 12, recreational vehicle subdivisions, and HUD code manufactured housing subdivisions, section 21 through 266, definitions and providing for severance, reading penalty, and effective date.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. I think this is mine, as are probably the next couple. So as the agenda shows, there were no changes made from the second reading. So what you see is the exact same as in your previous reading for chapter 21.
Okay, hearing some of the comments, do you have any comments on those comments?
Do I know? Not as staff.
You don't have anything that you want to say about the comments that were made?
Can I read something, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
I want to read the purpose, the definition, rules, construction, the purpose. These regulations, let me take this out.
Joella, what section is that?
It's 21-2.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I just wanted to read the purpose. These regulations are adopted for the following purposes: to protect and provide for the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens, to guide the future growth and development of the city in accordance with the general plan for the city, to provide for adequate light, air, privacy, secure safety from fire, flood, and other danger, and to prevent overcrowding of the land and undue concentration of population, to guide public and private policy and action in order to provide adequate and efficient transportation, water, sewage, other utilities, parks, and other public requirement and facilities. It also says to establish reasonable standards of design and procedures for subdivisions, re-subdivisions in order to further the orderly layout and use of the land and ensure proper legal descriptions, monumenting subdivided land, to ensure that public facilities are available and will have sufficient capacity to serve the proposed subdivision, to prevent the pollution of air, water, to assure the adequacy of drainage facilities, to safeguard the water table, and to encourage the wise use of management of natural resources throughout the city in order to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the community. So I just wanted to read that. And I also wanted to state out of those 300 and what was it, 40 something, only 47 of them lived in Port Aransas. And also on my notes, also, they're saying we're sneaky. It's not hardly. We've had the hearing through P&Z. We've had our lawyers look at everything, right, Dave?
Yes, correct.
We've had 2 lawyers look at everything and they said everything's good. I mean.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So nobody's telling you can't build a STR, and nobody's telling you we're taking them away. Matter of fact, the STR ordinance was passed last February. That was a done deal. We're with the STRs is tidying up signage and the company to register the STRs and those kind of things. I don't know, it just seems like locals are getting kicked out of every trailer park and housing, and it doesn't matter to anybody. So I just wanted to kind of address those a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Ellen. Anybody else?
No, I move to accept the changes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I second it.
Want to call the roll?
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Krueger,
Yes.
Councilmember Seeloff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holt,
Yes.
Mayor Bouillon.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, ordinance item B is the third and final reading, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 25 zoning by correcting grammatical errors, amending Article 4, supplemental district development and use regulations by amending Section 25 through 147, lot area and density requirements, Section 25 through 153, height and additional side yard requirements for multi-story buildings and structures, Section 25 through 155, mobile homes, Section 25 through 161, number of off-street parking spaces required, Division 5, accessory dwelling units, AUD, ADU, Section 25-176, general requirements, amending Article 5, plan unit developments, Section 25 through 257, location, amending Article 13, multifamily development summary chart, and providing for severance, reading, penalty, and effective date. That's yours too, Rick.
Yeah, Rick, you want to jump in and go over some of those small little typos we had?
Yes, sir. So I apologize. Again, wasn't a lot of time to give public notices and all of this to get it proofread as best as we wanted. So there's a couple of things that I've talked to some of the council about. I just wanted to ensure you that they got in there. First, let me go to the accessory dwelling unit. Actually, I think you have that in the package correctly. I highlighted it simply because it was the change requested from the last reading, and essentially the crux of the changes basically allow any homestead resident that has an ADU where it's their designated homestead.
Sorry, Rick.
So good. It's all right. If it's your designated homestead, then you will continue to short-term rent your accessory dwelling unit. The other grandfathering was written in such a way that that everybody that's currently that has an ADU, regardless of their homestead status, will be able to continue whatever the use of that ADU for short-term rental for a period of 5 years or until the property is sold and or the title transferred. So that, like I said, that was discussed, and again, that's I just highlighted it so that you were aware that that was a change from the last reading. We did want to clarify that with respect to building height, that where we limited the height for any parcel or lot less than 5,000 feet shall not exceed 27 feet in height. We just added that building height in a planned unit development will be determined through the planned unit development approval process. And the reason for that is the planned unit development, just a reminder, is its own separate ordinance. So it's a blank slate that they come to P&Z and ultimately to council with whatever that planned unit development proposal is. So the palmettos, is the sunflowers, the cinnamon shores, like I said, they are their own ordinance, but they come to planning and zoning with their proposal and council. So everything's on the table to be discussed. So that's why we just eliminated them from the building height from that. And then finally, the development table. There were two columns in the proposed development table. One was a green space that was just an obsolete reference because our landscape ordinance pretty much came in and trumped that. And as was our minimum off-street parking per unit, which again was trumped by our new parking requirement that basically requires one per sleeping room. So we just eliminated those. And in our low-rise definition in the second row of that development table, we just added condominium so that it reads low-rise multifamily / townhouse / condominium, just for clarity's sake. And those were the changes from your last reading.
So Rick, considering the comments from, I believe it was Miss Smith with respect to the ADUs, would there be any impact to her residences with the changes that were made last time?
If I understood correctly, what we've drafted at your request does eliminate the future short-term rental of any ADU unless the owner of the property resides there as their designated homestead. Now, that's for anything new. Existing, we're not taking that away. We're giving them 5 years or until that property sells.
I thought that the ADUs, it depend if they were in long term, they could rent long term. If they're in short term, they could rent short term. But we didn't put any.
Well, long term has never been the issue in any of our. It was a short term. So what we were directed to write was that the short and correct me if I'm wrong, is that ADUs, any future ADUs, could not be used for short term rental.
Oh, okay.
In any
so
existing
for someone
ADUs,
looking to use an ADU to supplement their income, those in a long-term rental position, that will not be affected.
that if they lived on site, that they could short-term or long-term. Long-term has never been an issue, but that if they lived on site and managed their short-term rental, they could manage their ADU. They could continue to short-term rent, and that's in perpetuity the way this is drafted. Everyone else that doesn't reside there could continue to short-term rent if the district so allows for 5 years or until the time they sell.
Okay, so you're saying if they don't live there right now, they can continue to do that until the 5 years is up.
That is correct. Or
okay, I got it. I wasn't understanding that for a second.
Is that, was I clear on the direction? Is that what we wanted to do?
No, that's exactly what we thought.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep,
Okay.
you've got it.
I'd also like to reiterate what Bruce said last time when he was on the P&Z and they came up with the idea of ADUs. I mean, it hadn't been here very long, but when they came up with the idea, it was for workers and it was for short term only if they only work through the summer. It wasn't really short term, it was long term for workers. And that's what the intention of it was all along. It never was for short term rental to make money. It was always for workers. That was the idea. So it's obviously hasn't worked.
Yes.
Thanks. Even one other question for you, sir. Just again, I mean, there was a comment in there that really was, I thought, when someone indicated, and Joe brought this up as well, but they indicated that it was sneaky the way things were done. Did we follow all regulations, the city?
Yeah, the ordinance, David, it you know, the state gives us a minimum time between readings. City council and the charter just says 3 readings. It doesn't get into any spacing requirement between those readings. And we defer to state law. State law says minimum of seven days between readings.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to. I'd like the motion that we pass the ordinance on the 3rd and final reading.
I'll second it.
And can we, David, could you add with the amendments that Rick read in regarding the charts and the other language?
I certainly will. So pass the amendment and pass the ordinance as amended.
Thank you.
Was there a second to that amendment?
I'll second it.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
the mayor's still muted. Mayor, you're muted.
Nobody else had any other questions, right?
No.
Maybe the mayor's muted because he hasn't said anything.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm not muted.
Any other comments before a vote, Mayor?
Not really. I'm in agreement with both these A and B, so.
So we should call for the vote, right?
Yep.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Krueger,
Yes.
Councilmember Seeloff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holtz,
Yes.
Mayor Bouillon.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Ordinance number, item C is an ordinance. Third and final reading, amending chapter 12 licenses and business regulations. Article 8 is short-term rentals and providing for severance reading and effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. Only one change, and I apologize. I don't like to do this. We carried over the agenda item reports and copied over from the previous, but the changes that I made didn't get attached to the agenda item. But it's minor. Councilman Park pointed out that we did in fact specify the size of the sign that's related, and that's really that was really the whole idea behind this short-term rental adjustment. Like I said, this isn't a new ordinance, it was just a tweaking. So the sign was 8 by 18 inches, and it didn't get into the this, but that is written into what I will make sure Fran has. And that's the only addition under that sign is a sign no smaller than 8 by 18 inches. Is that correct, Tim?
I thought we had discussed a particular font size though.
We did 1.5 inches.
Okay.
That was in there. I didn't get the, we didn't hear or take the note on the size of the sign.
I think that was me that let you know
Yeah.
I had.
I'm sorry, Joellen.
Yeah.
So that is in there, and I believe that's the right size. But it is everything else. It's still the 1.5 inches visible. It's just we added that sign to be smaller than 8 by 18, and that was the only change. And again, I apologize it didn't get to your packet.
And they just had that 3 by 5 small sign for the condo.
That all stayed the same. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. But that's the only thing we're doing in this STR deal right now. I mean,
That was it. We had delayed because we felt that the larger sign in that font wasn't gonna work. Then we realized the most part. So we just kind of waited until we had a chance to discuss it with you, and then that's the only.
That was it.
So that means that this is no new ordinance or anything. It's just changing.
Yeah,
It's just clarifying the signage language is all it is.
Exactly.
That's
That's
all
all it
it
says
is.
is put signage on short-term rentals. That's it.
Correct.
Doesn't require any extra garbage cans, doesn't require any extra change, just the sign.
For this right now, correct.
That's it.
We'll still have the, we still will have the discussion on the garbage and the toter issue.
So the concerns that we're getting rid of short-term rentals in Port Aransas with this are not justified.
In my opinion, that's a zoning change, and nothing we've done proposes to take away a zoning use that I'm aware of.
I mean, the intended consequences here are similar to what already exists in several other subdivisions. Essentially having a number to call when there are issues with a residence being short-term rental.
making that information facing visible from the street was the goal behind it.
Make a motion to pass this ordinance as written.
Second.
Second. Oh,
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Kruger,
Yes.
Councilmember Seeloff,
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Holt,
Yes.
Mayor Beyond.
yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, item C is the third and final reading.
D, Mayor.
Item D, Mayor.
I'm sorry, I see that. Item D is a resolution accepting and approving the annual financial report for the year ending September 30, 2020, as presented by Bayer and Company, certified public accountants, and directing publications as required by the Home Rule Charter.
Yes, so we have Wayne Byer here on the call to do a presentation of the audit, which should be in your packet. So, Mr. Byer?
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm not sure what format you have the audit report in. If it's in a PDF format, then I'll try to, I'm going to use the actual page numbers of the report. I'm using a kind of a bound copy of the report, so I'll try to direct you as best I can. I'd like to ask you to, first of all, turn to pages 1 and 2 of the report. And this is our opinion letter for the year end of September 30th, 2020. This is what they call an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion. Basically, it says that nothing came to our attention during our examination to cause us to qualify the report in any manner. And also, it says that we will provide all the information we asked to examine during our audit. If you look on page 1, in the part where it says auditor's responsibility, in that second sentence, I'm just going to read it to you. It says, we conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in Uniform Grant Management Standards promulgated by the Office of the Governor of Texas, by the way, under 34 TAC Part 1, Chapter 20, Chapter 1, Comptroller. So we, so basically, this is really 3 different audits. The first set of standards would apply to just a regular financial audit of an organization. And those are rules and procedures that are set forth by the CPA is our organization, our national organization. The second set of standards apply to a single audit for the federal grants. And there was a single audit for federal grants because the total grant expenditures last year exceeded $750,000. So the second set of standards under government auditing standards were set forth by the U.S. government. And again, there are rules and procedures we have to follow when performing a single audit of federal grant monies, or grant expenditures rather. That third set of standards is the state of Texas. The state of Texas has their own single audit rules and procedures and standards that we must follow when performing a state of Texas single audit. And there was a state of Texas single audit because the state grant expenditures exceeded $750,000. We stating that we followed the standards for all three different sets of standards. I might also say that the audit of grants, both federal and state, differs significantly from audits of this regular good old-fashioned audit. In a regular audit, we do a lot of testing, examination of expenditures and revenues and such. Whereas an audit of a grants, federal or state grants, is more in the nature of internal control examination. A federal grant audit is probably 90% testing of internal controls and maybe 10% testing, as would be in the ordinary course of a regular audit. And basically what we do on grants is we determine what the internal control procedures are. We assess whether those procedures are adequate, and then we test to make sure those procedures are being followed. And that's what we did in this report. Before we get to the numbers part, I just want to say that pages 1 through 12 of the report is what they call management's discussion and analysis. And that was done by the Office of Finance Director, Darla's office there, and she did all of these pages. And I have to say she did a very good job, much better job. She really put a lot into this. She has several graphs and things that you might be interested in seeing regarding the finances of the city. And then I would like to ask you, if you would, just turn over to page number 15 of the report. And I will be getting into the regular audit of the city. Basically, in the city, this city, as in many other cities, there are basically two types of funds. There are these funds. These are called just regular good old-fashioned funds, and they are generated mostly by budgetary accounting. And then you have other funds they call proprietary funds, which are similar to businesses. And those, even though they have budgets, they are presented more on a business type of nature. And we'll get to those in a second. If you look on page 15, in that first column there, that'd be your general fund. And to see where you stood at year's end, you'd go down to 3 lines from the bottom where it says unassigned fund balance. And that was $6.249 million at the end of the year. The total fund balance is $10,747,000. And the reason for the large difference is it would be those monies, those community disaster loan proceeds, which is also in that first column. It's about 5 or 6 lines up. It's $4,347,745. So that's basically how this general fund looked at the end of the year. The second column would be the beach fund. You can see at the end of the year, it had $3.3 million in it. Third fund would be your motel special revenue facility fund. At the end of the year at $8.990 million, just under $9 million. These two funds are basically generated or funded from hotel motel tax. Your fourth column is your hurricane recovery fund. It's got, as of the end of the year, had a $6.3 million deficit, but that will be made up from future grant monies that have yet to come in, and grant monies and or some insurance proceeds and such. But that won't stay at a minus $6.3 million. And then that fifth column is a construction fund. It had $344,000 in it. The reason these funds are presented on this page, they are considered to be major funds. There's a formula set for it that we use to determine what is a major fund and what is a non-major fund. So these made the page because they're considered major funds. And in a little bit, we'll look at the non-major funds. If you look on page 17 of the report, again, we had the same columns that we had before. I'm just going to talk about the first 3 columns. The first column, the general fund column. Again, if you look 3 lines from the bottom in that first column in the general fund column, you had a slight increase for the year of $100,775 for the year. Your total fund balance, you start out with $10,646,000 at the beginning of the year. You add $106,775 to that, and you get an ending fund balance of $10,747,000, of which, as I described earlier, $4.47 million of that's your disaster loan funds. And speaking of your disaster loan funds, if you take those away from your ending fund balance of $10,747,000, that leaves you with $6.249 million, which if you compare it to your total expenditures last year, which is about 6 or 7 lines up in that first column with $10,012,000, you have about a 60% coverage in your ending unencumbered fund balance. So you have about a 60% coverage. It could be maybe slightly under that, which is about 7 months, maybe 7 point something months of reserve. Generally speaking, anything over 25% or better is considered good, and that's what you want to have in there. If we look at the second 2 columns in that page, your beach fund, just looking at the beach fund here, you can see again, if you look at the bottom of that second column, 3 lines up, you had an increase of $839,000 for the year. You had a beginning fund balance of $2.5 million, and that gave you an ending fund balance of $3.3 million in that fund. And if you compare your ending fund balance there with your expenditures last year, which is again is like 6 or 7 columns up of $2.5 million, you actually have over 100% reserve in that fund. That third column, hotel motel special revenue facility fund, that third column, 3 lines up, that increased by $2.2 million last year. You had a beginning fund balance of $6.751 million, and that combined to give you an ending fund balance of $8.990 million, which again, if you compare it to your expenditures last year of $426,000, I don't know, it's like I can't even calculate that high, 20-to-1 coverage in that fund. So if you look at the top there in the second and third column up toward the top, you can see that they're financed mainly from your hotel motel tax fund. The beach fund, you received $2.241 million in hotel motel tax. And then that third column, your hotel motel special revenue facility fund, you received $2.491 million. Moving on to page 19 of the report is your general fund again, and it's broken down into the budgetary comparison schedules. That first column on that page is your budget as adopted. The second column is your budget as finally amended. The third column is your actual income and expense figures. And your last column is your budget variance column. And in that budget variance column, simply said, if the number has brackets around it, it's an unfavorable variance. If it does not have brackets, it's a favorable variance. So if you look at the top of page 19, on your total revenues, your final amended budget was $10,959,000. I brought in $10,763,000. See, overall, you came in under budget by $196,000. And probably the biggest item there would be your sales tax. You see your sales tax came in under budget. If you look at that last column, they came in under budget by $103,000 last year. The middle of the page are your departments, your different departments in the general fund. And I think they all were under budget. Well, there's a couple that were over budget. The inspection department, let's see, your finance department and your city attorney were over budget. Overall, on your expenditures, your final amended budget was $10,987,000. You spent $10,012,000. So overall, everything combined in the general fund expenditures, you came in under budget by $974,000. Okay. Now it'll go rather quickly. I just wanted to kind of hit those items in detail and ask you if you would, let's turn over to page number 51 of the report. In the page 51 of the report is the debt of the city. This is a required schedule in the notes. We are now in the notes section of the report. In this schedule, this debt schedule, the first column is the beginning of the year debt. You can see you have many different kinds of debt. You have debt that you would consider as being debt in the normal course of your everyday life. And then there's debt that you probably would not consider to be debt, but through the standards, auditing standards in U.S. government, they consider this to be debt. And I'll go over that in a second. In the column number 4 is your end of the year debt. So first column is your beginning of the year debt. Your fourth column is end of the year debt. If you look at the very top of that page, you have bonds, your governmental bonds, your general obligation bonds. If you look in the fourth column, your bond debt amount was $16,585,000, which for a city of your size is probably about average. I have seen cities much smaller than your city that have the same amount of debt. So that's really not an extraordinary high number for debt. And then you move down below that, you have what they call capital leases. Those are normally equipment purchases. You have here an ambulance. Looks like you had an ambulance that you're still paying off on. Generally, you finance this equipment paid over a period of 5 years, 6 or 7 years. So that balance was $77,000. That next line is your community disaster loan proceeds, $4.4347 million. And then you come to the next line, which is OPEB liability. And what that is, that's debt that you probably would never consider to be debt. And that's what your other post-employee benefit liability. And generally, that is monies that are going to be spent on people who have retired from the city. And these numbers are calculated by actuaries. They use several different parameters when calculating this information. Probably the primary number would be the interest rate. They go into the future and predict what the interest rate's going to be, and they'll discount it back to the current period. But in any way, they have deemed the amount of OPEB liability to be $4.5 million in your governmental activities, that'd be your general fund. And then below that, you have business type activities. And there they deem it to be $452,000. Your next line is your net pension liability. There, the amount at the end of the year is $2,428,000 for your general fund. For your proprietary funds, which we'll look at in a bit, it was $250,028. What that is that's your TMRS plan, and they look. And every year, as of December 31st of each year, they will go in and calculate. They'll look at the amount of money that is in the plan versus the amount of money that is owed from the plan to the employees. This is for your current employees. And if you have more monies owed out of the plan than you have in the plan, that triggers a liability. And for your information, as of the last date that they, for this audit report, that they determined that you had total pension liability amounts, monies owed out of the plan of $17,595,000. You had monies in that plan, $14,916,000. So that is what triggered a liability in this schedule. I might also add, you are at the end of the year, you were 84.78% funded. The average percentage funded is 15%. 85% funded. And if just for a quick note, if you turn over to page 57, I'll show you where I get that information from. If you look on page 57 in that second column in the middle of the page, that's where I get the numbers from. The $17,595,000 is the amount they call it total pension liability. That's the amount that's owed from the plan. That next line is total plan fiduciary net position, the amount that's in the plan, like your investments, cash and cash equivalents and such. and that triggers your liability, net liability of $2.6 million. And if you go down another line, it shows you as being 84.78% funded. It's really, really hard. You know, people ask me, how can you get that deficit down to zero? And it's really kind of hard. It's just so many different tangibles that are involved in that. But I've had people or clients or where cities and such where they'll actually start contributing more money into the plan. A factor that has a huge effect on that liability is people who've been with the city for a long time retiring. It just that'll bring your net pension liability amount up. So there's just several, and then the interest rate again, as I explained under the OPEB things, the interest rate has a huge factor on the amount of the liability. But there are people who actually have surpluses in those plans. So anyhow, back to page 51, the other type of debt you have is what is called compensated absences. In that fourth column, you can see under the general fund is $345,000. And under your business type activities is $16,000. That's your accrued vacation pay, accrued but untaken vacation pay. I have a couple other things I want to go over, but if I could, I would like to ask you, please turn back to let's just turn back to page 24, if you would. These are your proprietary funds. You have a gas fund, a sanitation fund, and a harbor fund. And on page 24, it shows the activity for last year from these funds. And if you look right in the middle of that schedule where it says operating income loss, that's basically the true indicator of how these funds do. So last year, under your gas fund, and then you have current year for the gas fund, and you have the prior year, so you can compare both years. So the gas fund had a operating loss of $130,508 for the audit year we're doing. The previous year, you had a loss of $262,000. So I guess the good news there is the loss decreased. It went from $262,000 loss to a $130,000 loss. The third and fourth columns are your sanitation funds. There, your loss last year was $57,000 rather. In the previous year, it was a gain of $13,000. And then you have the harbor fund, the fifth and sixth column. Last year, there was an operating loss of $289,000. And the year before, there was an operating loss of $362,000. So I guess also the good news there is that the operating loss is decreased, I guess. So these are your, what they call it, proprietary funds. I mentioned at the outset that there were non-major funds, and I just want to take you over there. On pages 101 and 102 of the report would be your non-major funds. These are all the rest of the funds in the city that are not categorized as either major funds or as proprietary funds. And if you like, you can just start on page 101 at the very bottom and work from left to right. You can kind of see how each fund did for the year. I'm not really going to talk about any of these funds. They're pretty self-explanatory. And there's a fund there on page 102, two columns from the right. That's your debt service fund. That's the service your debt. And you can see that at the end of the year, it had $27,684 in it. So I'm not going to really say any more about that. And then finally, we get to the end of the report, and on page 114, if you would look at that. I mentioned at the outset that what I just went through was the regular audit. On page 114 is the single audit for both the federal expenditures and for the state expenditures. If you look, you notice there's two columns to the right. The second from the right would be your federal expenditures, and the right-hand column would be your state expenditures. And you can see if you look at the very bottom, your total federal expenditures was $13,294,000 last year. Your state expenditures was $1,379,000. And of course, the big grants, the grants that would be tested would be the one at the top, your hurricane grant, Hurricane Harvey grant was the big grant there. So this is the grant that we tested, and we did substantial testing on this grant. So that's about it. The only other thing is there were no comment. There was a comment last year. If you look on page, let's see here, on page number 119 of the report, we are required on these single audits, if we're required to address findings in the prior year. So if you look on page 119 at the bottom, we had a comment about Marlin Academy last year, and you can see that we noted in our test month that January 11 out of 26 accounts were billed incorrectly, and then an italicized writing there says this finding has been corrected. As far as the year we just did, there were no findings, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Wayne. If anyone has any questions, otherwise, I think we do need something to pass the resolution to accept the audit.
Our motion to approve.
Second.
Mayor. Sorry.
Yes, we need to call a
Oh.
question.
Ask Mayor to unmute.
I'm unmuted.
Okay. Are you ready for me to call the roll, Mayor?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Councilmember Parker,
Yes.
Councilmember Krueger,
Yes.
Councilmember Seeloff, Mayor Pro Tem Holt,
Yes.
Mayor Bouillon,
Yes.
Councilmember Seeloff.
David, I think you're muted.
We text him, unmute.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Byer.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4. City Council comments, items for future consideration.
Well, I guess I still would like to look at wetlands and issues and drainage and storm drainage. Maybe we can talk about that. Some of the other ideas that we had for that.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone?
Sure.
Okay, hearing none.
Have you, or Dave or Rick, have you had any contact with Republic with respect to the issues they've been having with trash pickup in the city?
Yes,
sir.
Well, I've been having discussions with Mike Reeves, who is recovering from COVID, so he's getting on the mend, and he will be at the 19th. So we'll have a council kind of a presentation from Mike, and we'll get to have a little back and forth discussion with the issues.
Okay. Did he have any comments of what's going on that's been impacting us recently? I mean, is there anything specific?
It's yeah, Dave, it's a combination of broken down fleet not getting replaced due to COVID, no new trucks. So they haven't been able to turn over trucks. And so they're having a lot of breakdowns and, just bad luck on their part. And then also to top that, the volumes that they're seeing on Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays are just
Huge.
They just weren't prepared for it, and they're struggling to wrestle that in.
Would some of the things that we've been discussing, like adding toters, would that be beneficial? Did he think that would help? I mean, if it's a problem picking it up, it doesn't matter how many toters.
Exactly, and their problem right now is picking it up. I mean, they're having mechanic issues, mechanic staffing issues, getting good hydraulic mechanics, and they're having breakdown after breakdown. So yeah, the toters, like you said, that's not the problem. It's them showing up and getting through the day without a breakdown.
Okay, so no
Well,
quick
Mike has
solutions at
been
all.
really
No
good.
quick solutions, yeah.
They've been really good in responding, and they usually get here within a day.
Yeah.
And then one other comment I'd like to make during the citizen comments, there were a lot of folks that were, there were several that indicated that current ordinances in place, if enforced, would address many of the issues that we have seen and many of the complaints. And I'd like just to validate with you, David, we've already hired, or Rick, we've already hired one code enforcement person, correct, for the beach, and we have another position now open, correct?
Yeah, we have we hired the police code enforcement additional staffer. And then, like you said, in this upcoming budget, we have additional police and we have the additional code enforcement officer.
So we are, I just want to make certain the citizens are aware, that everyone's aware that we are doing things to address the issues with
Yes,
the
correct,
existing
yeah.
ordinances as well. So,
Yes.
okay, good. I mean, I think there's some misinformation, and I want to make certain that individuals hear what we are doing and understand what we're doing and realize that we're not simply putting more and more and more ordinances on books that won't be enforced. We are definitely trying to do the things in the right order. So, okay. And finally, David, promise this is my last question. We had discussed the perpendicular parking on the beach, and I know you were going to talk to, I think it was GLO to verify.
GLO signed off, and then the judge, I had conversations with the judge and attorneys. So we'll have an ordinance for you guys at the 19th, first reading.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, David.
I would like to ask that to see if we could get a traffic study sooner than later. I know you said it could be in the comprehensive plan, but I'd like to not wait forever on that if we could.
Yeah, the first part, Joellen, is giving them a directive, but they need to know what we perceive as our problem. So we got to at least get to that step.
Okay.
Like what areas they want to look at, because what they'll come in and they'll start doing traffic counts. That being said, doing traffic counts in the winter doesn't really do you any good.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got to figure that all out. But no, I hear you.
Yeah.
But isn't that TxDOT's light? Shouldn't TxDOT be doing this traffic study?
No, really, we want to pay for a custom study, Joan. So we really want to be the ones calling the shots on it. Sometimes TxDOT will participate, but you usually don't get the data that you want and how you want it.
But the major problem's got to be Alistair and Cutoff. I mean,
yeah, terrible,
awful. And I still think they could do something with the light to change it.
Station and G. There's a lot of places now they're going all through the neighborhoods because they can't get down the main streets. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And all you have to do is go down and turn left on Cutoff. You can do that. You can turn right on Cutoff, but you can't get to Cutoff from Alistair.
Yes. It's been very difficult this summer.
Yeah.
Mayor?
You're muted.
Mayor, you got anything?
Mayor, unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted.
All right.
Okay.
Any more comments? I don't have any comments.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. So reminder, this Thursday, budget, Darla, correct? Budget at 5 o'clock.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Is
Thank
that
you.
gonna be a Zoom meeting, by the way? or-
Good night.
Yes.
Hope you feel better, Joan.
Thank you.
Yes, David.
I hope so.
So it's definitely a Zoom. Okay, thank you.
Oh, no.
Night.